Hello, and welcome to today's Mindset. I am extremely excited about today's Mindset. I have Pete Mohr here today. He has such an extensive background here that I am actually going to be reading a page, so excuse me. You call yourself a multipreneur, which is the first time I've ever heard that, and I love that. We've heard the word solopreneur, but multipreneur, owned many different businesses, the host of Simplifying Entrepreneurship. You're also a coach for the Business Made Simple certified program, which I do want to spend a lot of time talking about. You own footwear stores, as well as you have other stores, Liquidation Roadshow and Sandy Mist. Oh my goodness. Um, Pete, how do you juggle all this? I mean, with what's going on in your life, it seems like you're doing a lot more than your average person would be doing.
Yeah, well, I love business, Daniel, and I think I've always loved business. And to be quite frank, I've got a couple of those businesses that are currently dormant. They kind of come up and down depending on the
Hmm.
time of year and stuff like that. So, Sandy Mist was one that we popped up when COVID happened and kind of had a whole fogging business around that. And since some other stuff has happened, we have let that one sort of go dormant currently. With regards to Liquidation Roadshow, that's one that we bring all sorts of people into big road shows, big liquidation events. And here in Canada, we can't really do those right now. So we have population sort of limitations on all events and different things like that. So haven't been able to do those for the last little while either. I mean, it's all there, it's ready to roll again, but based on the fact that we can't control the uncontrollables like the government shutting things down, we just aren't going ahead and doing those shows until things kind of come back to normal. So for the most part, what I'm doing these days, yes, I have a couple of shoe stores called Shoetopia here in Ontario, and that's a big part of what I do. And the other big part of what I do is right here, simplifying entrepreneurship, where I'm coaching other leaders, other business owners, and through their what I call their turn their frustrations into freedoms and help them sort of create clarity from chaos and getting through frameworks and systems and all this kind of stuff. So really, it's a big pleasure for me to be working with lots of entrepreneurs and people who are trying to make a better business, make a better life, I guess.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for joining us. I know with your crazy schedule, I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and hopefully kind of the listeners. I mean, take this and what you're going to be introducing because I'm extremely excited. I mean, so I wanted to start with talking about the on versus the in for entrepreneurs who are working on their business versus in their business. I think this is a great kind of segue for us to kind of introduce some of the different topics that I guess this conversation could go to. How would you dictate the difference on someone who's working on their business versus someone who's working in their business?
So um, the way I look at that is I work on my business. I rarely work in my business. Like if we're going to frame it back to our shoe stores, for example. Okay. And
Hmm.
from that perspective, the leaders, from a leadership perspective, that's when I'm working on my business. I'm actually working on the things that are going to make it become better, the strategy, the systems, the people, all of those different things. Those are working on your business as opposed to working in your business. When you're working in your business, you're more working from a perspective of management where you're making sort of everyday decisions and all of that sort of stuff, which from my perspective, and a lot of what I do with my entrepreneurs that I'm working with is really try to free them up from that so that they can enjoy the freedom to actually do the things that they truly love to do in their business that serves them the best and serves everyone around them the best so that they can lead the business as opposed to manage the business. And that's when you're working in your business. And it's okay to work in your business, and I work in my business too, but the idea is that really you should be working as the leader of the business on your business more than you should be working in your business.
So that kind of goes to, I mean, you brought the leader versus manager, and there are a lot of different topics about that. So, um, I mean, we could get into that all day, but for me, I think I'd like to better understand from your perspective, what does it feel like for someone who's working on their business versus rather than in? How can I identify if I'm working in my business, and maybe what are some steps I can take to kind of transition out of it?
Yeah. Well, I've got a framework that I generally work with my clients on, and I call love it or leave it. And from that perspective, understanding what you truly want to do, like we just chatted about, understanding, what your true sort of areas of genius are, or as Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach would say, your unique ability. So, and really understanding what that is so that you're spending all of that time working there. And when you're working in the things, it's usually the things that maybe you're really good at doing, but you don't necessarily want to do. Maybe you wanted
Right.
to do them a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, but you've either outgrown that, grown tired of it. I mean, entrepreneurs, it's a lot of times have this squirrel brain, right? It's like, okay, been there, done
Yep.
that. I've
Yep.
tackled it. Now I want to move on.
Yep.
And so, but you can't move on. You can't move on until you've aligned what we call sort of the 5 Ps. And, those are your promise, your product, your process, your people, so that you can get the profit. And we can talk about those a little bit more too, because that's when you're really starting to set into the leadership side of things. Look at all of those facilities within your business, and you're aligning the accountability. So again,
Mm.
aligning the accountabilities and the management structure so that it's going to elevate and delegate to everybody else in the organization. And they're going to be working in their love it areas too of what they do, because not everybody's good at the same thing. And by the way, that's good. We want to have unique abilities throughout the business that are complementing each other. And so that the one owner doesn't have to know every single little thing, because that's when growth stops. And we hit these ceilings of complexity along the way. And so those kind of things are the things we need to break through as the leaders of our organization.
I love that. So, you have on your website this, do you find yourself? And I thought that that was awesome. So, because a lot of people, I think that that's a great reference. By the way, the website is simplifyingentrepreneurship.com. I saw that on the website, and I did go through the assessment, and we'll talk about the assessment in a bit. But for me, I thought that that was an awesome starting point, because it's something that I can relate to. Excuse me, I can relate to that too, because there were many different, right? You talk about procrastination, having some kind of better system, and I think that being able to kind of go through those points and maybe identifying to one or two of them really helped me kind of say, this is something that I can start to maybe start as a pinpoint, as a first step to say, here are the pain points that I have. So great, I find those pain points, I understand those pain points. How do I get started on maybe addressing some of those or putting a better system in plan?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to get into the 5 Ps now, Daniel, with regard?
Sure, let's get into the 5 Ps. Yeah.
That's how you do it. So, really and truly from a leadership perspective, okay. And I call it sort of turning these frustrations, on the website. I just was peeking at it as you were chatting there too, letting
Hmm.
fate dictate your future, procrastinating, in need of better systems, feeling like you aren't maximizing your potential,
Right, right.
questioning whether your team actually gets it. Like, have you ever thought, like, why don't they get it? And that's because you haven't got these things aligned. And the first part of why they don't get it is because they don't understand the promise. And that's P number one. What is the promise of your business? Why is it it's the why of the business. And to lay out the promise, to understand the promise, and to use it in language that's nice and simple, the easiest way to do it is lay it out with these 3 words. One is, or these 3 sort of concepts. What is the problem that you are solving with your product or service? What is your unique solution to that problem that's different than everybody else's? So what's your unique spin? Because most solutions are already out
You
there.
got
So
to have a
how are you
different spin.
making it
Exactly.
different, right?
Right.
So that they live a better life. So, what's their problem? What's your solution? And what does their better life look like afterwards? Because with every promise, people always buy a better future. Doesn't matter whether you're buying a
Mm.
steak at the local grocery store because you're thinking about the fact that I'm going to have this great steak and sit down and it's going to be a great meal and all this stuff, or whether you're buying your next trip to go away, or whether you're buying your next car, you're always picturing yourself in a better future. So it doesn't matter what your product or what your service is. If you look at it that way, what's their problem? What's your solution? and what's the life after, then you'll be able to develop the language around your promise that's going to help all of the people that need to know the why of your business. So that's where it really starts. And a lot of times leaders, if you're wondering why they don't know what they're doing, if you're having problems, with different people leaving the business or any of these different things, it's the communication of why they're even there to begin with, because they don't understand the
Interesting.
promise.
Interesting. So it sounds like the promise is probably the key, the most important aspect of all this. And obviously the promise being to your prospects and employees, right? How do you trickle that down from your own, I guess, vision down to your team?
How do you do that? Through
Yeah.
constant and never ending communication.
Easy
Every
enough.
day, every meeting, like it just has to be there. It's like a rhythm, right? So what do I do with simplifying entrepreneurship? I help entrepreneurs turn their frustrations into freedoms,
So we
through
talked, go ahead, I'm
through
sorry.
processes and through systems and through these different things that allow that to happen, right? So that, if we're going to say that, right, so that they can enjoy all of the opposites of what we just talked about, which is you're going to have your time back. You're going to have everybody in your organization is going to know what's going on. You're going to have a clear path. You're going to, all of those different things around the things that we want as leaders are the things that, we're trying to drive home through all of the different processes, systems, frameworks, and all the things that I talk about, right?
So I'm curious to see from your perspective, what do you think some of the biggest, the biggest fears are from maybe new business owners or those who you've been able to work with?
The biggest fears?
Yeah. What are some of the biggest fears that you've identified?
Most of the time, fear and frustration are a little different.
Okay.
So, from a fear perspective, I think one of the biggest from new owner or from new business, it's almost always regarding cash flow. Are we going to be able to make payment? Are we going to be able to pay our team? Are we going to be able to make next month? Are we going to be able to make next quarter? Are we going to be able to make, all of these different things? And you're always kind of, and I'm not saying you shouldn't always be looking at finances, but I think the fear of not having enough is really very current and very pressing for a lot of new owners. And, the next biggest fear in behind that is finding the right people. And that's one of our P's as well, right? So, we've got the 5 P's again is your promise, your product, your process, people, and profit. So people is often anything around people. And we break down people into 3 different categories: your ideal client, your ideal team members, and your ideal outsource suppliers, anybody who drives home the rest of your product or the rest of your promise. Sorry. So from that perspective, we're always looking at that. And any of those 3 can cause a great deal of fear to an entrepreneur. I mean, when you're small and you only have a small team, losing 1 or 2 people could mean literally losing 25 or 50% of your business, of your team. And that's fearful. That's like, wow, what am I going to do? And how am I going to get through this? So some of those things in early startup phases are a little bit different than some of them at later phases, but ultimately you're still thinking about these 5 Ps all the time. And you're still thinking about, there are no perfect solutions to all this stuff, but we're always trying to perfect them, right?
Perfect. So I want to talk about this assessment a little bit because I think that ties hand in hand with, the what we just spoke about. The plane, and I love this plane analogy. So something I learned recently, analogy is something that actually most people can find a way to connect with it. This plane analogy for me makes so much sense. Can you explain a little bit of kind of how you came about this whole structure of I guess the assessment?
Yeah. So the assessment is a Business Made Simple tool assessment. So I'm a certified Business Made Simple coach. And that's one of the tools that I did not actually come up with myself. That's one that I use through Business Made Simple. So it's a Business Made Simple. Donald Miller wrote the book Business Made Simple. And there's a bunch of certified coaches that wrap around that. And I'm one of them. So if you go to my website, like you were saying at Simplifying Entrepreneurship, you can take the assessment and you'll get this. And, Daniel, if you've taken the assessment, so it takes around 12, 15 minutes to do the assessment.
Pretty quick. Yeah.
It's not that long, but it spits you back this great PDF document that's like 50 or 60 pages, depending on how you've answered the questions, that really outlines. And I love sort of traffic lighting. I talk about traffic lighting a lot, which means, is it red? Is it yellow? Is it green? And it kind of lays out the cockpit is the execution side. Like, how are you doing on leadership? Are you red? Or are you green? And, the wings are your marketing and your sales. And the fuselage is your cash flow. And so you've kind of got all of these different areas around your business, and you're answering the questions along the way. And it's really saying, what areas of the plane do you need to work on so that you have the better future, right? We're building the so
Yeah.
that here too. And so that this airplane, flies through the air effortlessly and will get you to where you want to go, and will not be weighted down or not be wingless or any of these other things when you're flying from destination to destination. And I think a big part of the whole thing is knowing what that destination is. What's the mission? What's the vision? What are the guiding principles? And that, from your perspective of being a leader, you need to have that stuff solidified. And when it's solidified with your critical actions and your key characteristics and all of the things that you're doing in your business every day, you're peppering in that promise in there along with that in
I
your
love that,
critical,
peppering.
yeah. And you're, it's part of your guide, what I call your guiding principles. And so we build the guiding principles and we work on that promise. Everything's starting to become clear now. Everybody knows what's going on, right? So then you're communicating this, like we said, in every meeting and every, the meeting rhythms of your business. Are you meeting every day? Are you meeting every week? Are you meeting every quarter? All of those things. Well, when you meet, you want to be continuously saying what that promise is and continuously going through the guiding principles. You should be hiring and firing and rewarding around them. I mean, all of these different things that are pieces of the leadership side of the business are so critical and crucial to moving you through so that you deliver that promise through the right product, right? Because a lot of times people will work on products forever in a day, especially we were talking about startups. They
You could go on and on all month and really get nothing accomplished.
So you're working on startup products for 1, 2, 3 years sometimes, and you haven't even
Right.
sold one. Well, get it out there, get it tested, see if it's even a viable product that's actually going to deliver the solution to your customer with the problem so that they have a better life after. Because a lot of times people think in their own mind that it's going to deliver, but nobody's willing to pay or pay what they want for it. And if that's the case, you've got the wrong system. You've got either the promise is wrong, the product is wrong, or the people are wrong, right?
Interesting.
It doesn't work. So you got to get that stuff out there and test it and always be working through that stuff. So for those of us who have legacy businesses, like I've been a shoe store owner for 12 years, and, we have legacy products in our stores that,
Okay.
were at one time top selling products. Well, they're not anymore. And they don't contribute back to the cash side of things. We look back at the airplane, right? Like, is the cash weighting down? Like, is everything weighting down so that the cash is not there to lift us up? Are we getting weighted down? We're going to fall out of the air
Air.
because our body of our fuselage is just way too big, and it's just going to weight us down under the cash flow crunch. So all of these different things, we have to be looking at our products. And the way I set up products is basically like this. You need to be getting rid of typically at least 10% of your products every year. And you
Okay.
need to be looking at that middle 70, 80%, and you need to be honing that down because that's what delivering the bulk of your business. So what you need to do is find the efficiencies even more with that. And then the next, that sort of 10 or 20% is the next, it's your future. It's all the stuff that's a little bit faster, a little bit cheaper, a little bit better, a little bit more efficient. All of the things that your clients are going to want, you want to be forward before they want it so that you have it in your arsenal of that 70% or 80% of stuff ready to roll for when they're asking for it, so that you're leading the charge with that 20% of 10 or 20% of your products. So that's one of your jobs as a leader, to be always looking for that next best thing that's going to be that key thing for you down the road. And then 10, 15 years, or maybe 2 years, depending on your cycle, that's going to be gone again and the new ones come in. But so on a product side of things, you're always looking for those things that need to be let go, and you're always looking for those things that need to come in, and you're always trying to get the best out of the main drivers of your business right now. That's the key piece for that product side of the P's.
So the product side of the piece translates to the profit side, right? What I love about the plane analogy is it was so simple, and we were able to kind of really pinpoint where on my side do I need to focus and work on. The product side is for a lot of people who are in what we're in the real estate space or are going to solopreneurship. They don't always have a product that they have a service. How can someone be innovative? Yeah. So how can because we talk about the 10% and the 20% innovation, how would you recommend someone who's maybe in a service-based platform or I guess business, how does that rule work for them?
I'm in a service-based business with my coaching practice, and it's the same thing, so there's certain pieces of my puzzle that I'm not going to use anymore, and there's certain pieces that I'm always dreaming up new ways to new concepts, new features, new things that I can, even like I said, when we first started, we had a 4P, now it's a 5P. So you're always looking to add on different things. When you get your mind around how you can make it even better for your clients, those are the things that you want to be doing. Maybe you're getting, maybe you have a faster turnaround. Maybe you're going to implement some sort of tool like Calendly, let's say, for an example, just to book an appointment that's going to reduce their frustration, give you more freedom. Every time you're trying to set up an appointment, you're back and forth between 7 and 13 times. With Calendly or TidyCal or any of these variety of different calendar scheduling appointment products, it's a piece of cake. It's one times, and you're reducing the frustration. So when you have service-based businesses, you're always looking for the things, again, we'll go back to that idea. You want to reduce their frustration, give them more freedom. You want to make it quicker, make it easier, make it cheaper, and you want to allow them to come into the fray and understand what your promise is in a very simple and easy way. And every time you can do that better than you did before, that's what we're talking about in the improvement of your service, because they're going to see it and they're going to say, this is the person I want to work with, right? From a service perspective, it's like, there's just no other choice. This is the person. They're aligning with me perfectly. And when you're doing this sort of stuff, you're thinking about the strategy of this stuff. Keep in mind too, it's perfectly good to repel people.
What do you mean by that?
So it's perfectly good to repel, because when we move into the people side of things, your ideal client is really that side of things. And who is your ideal client? Well, your ideal client isn't everybody. I can tell you that. So from that perspective, who really is your ideal client? And from that side of things, you're really saying, okay, if I have an ideal client, I have a terrible client too. Which is the antithesis, right? It's like, this person is one I never want to work with again. And anybody who's listening, probably you can remember their name right now.
I already have 3 of them in my head. Yep.
I'm never going to work with Mr. Smith again. Like, that's just wasn't for me. It wasn't an alignment, right? And at the same time, you're thinking, this, Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones was my best ever client. Right. And I need to align fully with those kind of clients. So when I'm setting up the structure of how do I get my ideal client, you're always thinking about your worst and you're always thinking about your best. And you're laying anybody that you have a discovery call with, or any new clients that may come into the fold, into this scoreboard essentially. And when you work out the scoreboard of who your ideal is and who your worst is, it's okay to repel your worst, because it's just going to take all of the frustration in your day and pack it into that one person.
And now you could take that and put it into something positive that adds to your business. I love it.
So when we talk about repelling, it's okay to repel. It's okay to repel the wrong kind of team person. It's okay to repel the wrong kind of client. It's okay to repel the wrong kind of supplier, because they don't fit your promise.
So my question was, and I think you're actually answering this. So I was going to start to talk about steps that I can take to kind of maintain momentum in my business. Would you consider this as one of those steps that you would want to be taking on, I guess, a consistent basis?
You want to look at these 5 Ps in different frameworks, and like you want to be going through this stuff at least quarterly,
Okay.
and literally sit down with a piece of paper and say, okay, people, and say product. What products am I going to look at? My worst, my best. How am I going to work through different things? Then you're going to look at all your processes, which we haven't talked about so much yet.
Not yet.
But
Right.
processes are the next thing because, really, one of my coaches uses the word acronym for the word system, which I really love. And it's a system saves you stress, time, energy, and money. So what does a system do? It saves you stress, time, energy, and money. So systems, processes, all the same sort of thing. But basically, when we align our processes within our business, and you have a lot of them, right? A ton.
Okay.
They're all over operations, they're all over marketing, they're all over sales, they're all over hiring and firing and human resources, they're all over bookkeeping, accounting, and finances. But really, all of those processes often aren't outlined. They often aren't optimized. They often aren't maximized. They often are really just in somebody's head. And if that person leaves, you're losing all the processes.
Yeah, and I think that that's someplace that most businesses struggle. You've trained one person, they know that specific role, and then now what? So, what are maybe some of the systems or frameworks you can implement into your business to kind of help you not lose those processes? Because I think that again, for me at least, that's where I think I struggle the most. I bring a team member in, they're awesome, they do the right thing, they get the job done, and now they're moving maybe out of that position. They're moving into getting a hiring into a different position, and now I'm kind of stuck. How do we avoid that?
Can't move until they complete their processes.
Okay.
It's that simple.
So
So
can
from
you,
if they're
sorry, can
if
you
they're
break
moving
down the,
up,
okay,
if
go
they're
ahead.
if they're moving up or they're moving sideways, it doesn't really matter. But
Right.
they cannot leave that position until the processes are firmly documented in a
There it is.
step-by-step manner so that the next person that's coming in is going to really just start their job.
So I don't think most people truly understand the step by step. I mean, how detailed can you get, or do you want to get into this? I mean, for most I guess entrepreneurs who are starting out their business or growing their business, um, what kind of documentation do I want in play?
You need as much as it will take in order for somebody to step into that job and be fully trained within a couple of days, on most minor positions. And if they're in executive roles and stuff, it's a little bit different. But sort
Hmm.
of in most sort of entry positions, they need to be up and ready in a day or two. So if the processes aren't ready for that, like I'll flip it back to retail. I mean, we own retail
Okay.
stores, right? So I want somebody to be able to be out on the floor serving customers within 3 days. And so they've got to go through their training. All the training has to be sit there. It needs to be all checkboxed and checked off. And can they do returns? Can they run somebody through the till? Do they know how to, address clients and all of the different things that their particular job may be. Right. And so each job, what does it mean to be a key holder? What does it mean to be an assistant manager? What does it mean to be a bookkeeper? What does it mean to be all of these positions? Just as you were outlining them, if you were going to be hiring somebody and putting sort of a job posting out there, it should be listed, that should be documented what they do in their job every day so that they really know what to expect from their job. They know how they're going to be compensated. They know how they're going to be and what they're going to be held accountable for. All of these things, the accountability piece is so important in order to remove frustration from the owners. If people don't have accountability, the owner is accountable. And the only time you can start releasing some accountabilities is when you have the right frameworks in place, the right systems and processes in place so that you can actually release accountability and step up and out of it.
So one thing I want to talk about, because for me that's, I mean, I think there's a parallel between the process and frameworks that you put in play and automation. What kind of automations would you maybe, I guess, advise for someone who maybe has put these frameworks into play and now wants to start to improve and make them more efficient?
Yeah. There's a ton of automations. There's an absolute ton, Daniel. We could go on for 3 or 4 podcasts on automations. So one of my friends, Ari Meisel, who's one of my coaches, and love his framework, and it's called OAO. So what do you do to set up processes? You optimize them first, then you automate as much as you can, and then you outsource the rest. So, and it has to happen in an OAO fashion. It has to, you can't automate something that isn't
Then try to
optimized.
right.
It doesn't work. So you have to sit, and that's the idea behind process. You have to lay out the process in a step-by-step manner that's really simple and straightforward, that so that it can be automated. And if it can't be automated by all sorts of tools, Zapier and if then that and all sorts of like I use Gmail, there's all sorts of automation scheduling tools and snooze tools and all sorts of automations, Trello, and there's just a ton of things to talk about there, but we'd go down a rabbit hole, I think, and so there, once you have the automation bucket, whatever you can't find an automation for, that's when you're bringing in the outsource, and the outsource could be an outside partner who's doing that for you, or it could be somebody within your team who's doing it for you. But basically it means that there's human involvement at that time.
Got it. Interesting. I think that's definitely a very straightforward and I guess a formula for someone to use that probably gets overlooked quite a bit. And I think especially in the industry that we're in the tech industry, we're always looking to automate stuff, and it's definitely good. That's definitely good advice. Can we shift gears a little bit? I want to talk about the empowerment entrepreneur. I wanted you to get into a little bit of the 3 pillars that you talked about and the overlap. Again, on your website, there's an awesome image of it, and maybe we can throw that image up in the top right corner or somewhere. But I really wanted you to kind of maybe get into that a little bit, because I think that's going to give a lot of the entrepreneurs that are utilizing our platform a little bit of a flavor of how simple it can be to really empower themselves and empower their business.
Yeah. So the empowered entrepreneur. So I call this the heart model, and it kind of looks like a heart, 3 circles. And right in the middle of the heart is the empowered entrepreneur. And that empowered entrepreneur, wrapped around that heart basically is 3 C's. And those 3 C's are clarity, community, and confidence. And, I often say on my podcast, and even when I'm talking, that clarity creates confidence, and confidence ignites momentum. And so when you have full clarity, and we've been talking a lot about clarity today on this chat, because that's where it all starts. It starts with clarity of all these 5 P's and communication around that, right? So once you have that clarity, you're building this confidence, you're feeling the momentum, and the outer rings are momentum, mastery, and mindset, right? So from that perspective, we've got clarity and confidence, we're building momentum, confidence, and community. When you tag those 2 together, so that's that people portion, right? All three parts, the community around your business. When you have full confidence and you have a great community of clients, of outsourced partners, and of team members, then you've got mastery of your promise.
And we keep going back to this promise, which I love to be. So yeah,
that's where it starts. And you need to be delivering the promise and communicating it, right? So when you have the clarity and you have the community, all your team members, and the clarity around that, that's the mindset that surrounds the promise.
Love that.
Right? That's the mindset of the entire organization. Whatever,
right.
It's the mindset. So you've got clarity, community, and confidence surrounding the entrepreneur. And then with that built, you've got the right mindset, the right amount of momentum, and the mastery. And that's your promise. That's the whole heart of the organization.
So can we dive into the aspect of the communicating your promise a little bit? How do you create and communicate the vision of I guess your business, your promise through your business? What are your kind of guiding principles for that?
Well, we started off by, as far as the promise is really that 3-part structure we've already chatted about, right?
We've gone over that.
What's the problem, and what's your solution, so that they can live a better life? So when you have that, you've pretty much got your your vision for the business, right? And so you can expand that out a little bit in more than like with a promise. I try to keep it nice and tight,
Okay.
and so I would say, with my shoe stores, I don't think I've mentioned this one yet, but with my shoe stores, my promise is we're going to we're going to help you look great and feel fantastic. 4 words: look great and feel fantastic. So if you walk into Shoetopia, what's our promise to you? When you leave with your new pair of shoes, you should look great and feel fantastic. And what does that mean? Taking it down to 6 letters, it means you should be able to look in the mirror and you should be able to go, ooh, I look pretty good. So we got OOH as
Okay.
that, right? And then you should be able to close your eyes and you should be able to say, I feel fantastic. Those feel awesome. So if we've delivered the ooh and the ah, taking it down to 6 letters, making it even more simple, then we have an aha moment, which is I've finally found a pair of shoes that actually looks good and makes me feel fantastic. This is my favorite shoe store.
I don't think it's ever been put that way. So you talk about the company vision and you're supposed to put out the vision and the mission and all that. But I think the way that you framed it this way probably was my aha moment more than the 7 years I've been in this with this company. I've never had it framed that way. So how did you come up with that? I mean, what kind of led you to I guess not necessarily rework, in my opinion, but kind of simplify to these two elements.
Yeah. So that's the heart model that we've just talked about, right? So when you can put things in models and frameworks and systems that actually allow you to communicate what it is you're trying to communicate, that's the power of a model.
So we've gone over a lot of models, and and for me, I think there's a lot of information to be gained from here. More so, and I feel as though myself, a lot of it kind of has gone over my head. To be fair, there was a lot. What is one model that someone who's brand new into the business can take away from you right now?
Well, think about that easy one. We've talked about it many times. We keep coming back to it because it means so much. What is the problem your client is experiencing? What is your solution, your unique solution to solve that problem? And what does their life look like afterwards? Because if you've laid that out in that framework, that gives you all of your marketing, because now it's like, okay, what's the solution? So I'm going to market on the solution. I'm going to market on their problem. What's the pain points that they have, right? I'm going to market on what their life looks like afterwards. Do you want this for yourself? Like, is this what you're dreaming of? Because if it is, we have the solution to your problem. You can work it both ways. You can play all the things around that in all of your communication. So if you think of those 3 buckets, you've got so much stuff there that you can build so many great things, your vision, your mission, a lot of those things. This is an impetus and a starting point for so much of your business. And if you don't have that aligned properly, that's where you're having problems with communicating this to everyone around you.
Love it. Love it. Easy enough. Although it seems like a lot of work, it is very simplified at that point. So thank you. Um, I mean, we're coming up to a close on our side, Pete. Is there anything that you can give as far as advice for someone who, is looking to take their business to the next level, other than maybe connecting with you and starting to work with you? I mean, what is something that you can advise someone to take on and maybe just take something that one of the frustrations that they're having and work through it?
So if we're talking on the technological side of things, I mean, just look at how you conduct your email. Email can be one of the biggest frustrations for every entrepreneur. How are you dealing with that? And how are you managing your email? And are you using sort of a inbox zero type format? I mean, which I'm a big believer in. And the side of that, really, like, how are you delegating your email? How are you filtering your email? How are you turning off notifications around your email so that you can stay in your zone of focus when you need to stay in your zone of focus? So email often is a big frustration, a big time waster, and a
Absolutely.
big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs get sucked into because of the instant hit of, oh, maybe it's my next sale, or maybe it's whatever the case is. But start thinking around, and maybe even spend a week mapping out how much time you actually spend with your email and how you can change that so that you're not spending as much time. And there's lots of tools and lots of different things we can talk about on another episode, or you can search online, whatever the case is, around email management. But it really is one of the biggest things that causes a lot of grief and can literally save you 2 or 3 hours a day in some cases, which really amounts to a lot of time back over the course of a year.
So is there a recommended amount of time that maybe someone would spend or not spend on their email, I guess?
I think the bigger piece, in a couple of minutes, is that you allocate a specific amount of time, whatever you're comfortable with yourself,
Okay.
and you don't let yourself sort of press over or press under that. And if you're finding yourself always having too many, then you need to start parsing that off and delegating it to other people to make those decisions. And it's the same sort of thing around elevating and delegating and making people accountable and having accountabilities within your business to reduce your frustration. Well, there's a good chance that you're being CC'd on a bunch of stuff that you don't even need to know. So that's one of the filters, right? So start laying out your filters. What do you need? What don't you need? Unsubscribe filter. If it says unsubscribe on it, it probably is a list. So let those go to something other than your inbox that you're going to go look at another time, that's not going to take your time now. Because just remember, when you get a notification on your phone or on your computer or whatever the case is, that's someone else taking your time.
Mm-hmm.
And as leader of your business, how long does it take you to get back into focus when a ding goes off or when something comes up? And just think about the last time when somebody asked you a question and you were in the midst of something and you answered the question and you kind of got back and you kind of said, what was I working on again? How long does it take you to get back into focus again? So think about your time management. Think about how you're doing that sort of stuff and allocating your time with email, with a lot of other things too. We can talk about calendar scheduling and all sorts of different things, and allowing yourself free focus and flex time, 3 different types of time that are very valuable to every leader.
Well, Pete, I mean, again, thank you so much for taking the time. This was a tremendous amount of information, and I'm sure we're gonna have to watch this a couple of times to really grasp all the information that you provided. We went through the 5 Ps. You gone through, well, one thing we didn't actually go through is the wheel of momentum, which, again, there's so much on your website. There's so much that you provide that there, an hour isn't enough for us. But one thing I highly advise for anybody watching this, it's simplifyingentrepreneurship.com. Start there. Look at the website. I mean, that's where I started. And when I first was introduced to you, I took a look at the website, and immediately I identified what it is that you're doing, and the fact that you do provide so many different frameworks that really allow us to start to compartmentalize all of the different aspects of business. And if you haven't taken the assessment, definitely take the assessment. That was definitely kind of eye-opening for me. Not when I saw more than anything is when I saw that plane and being able to take all of the different aspects of the business and get the green, red, and yellow. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Uh-huh. I mean, well, we're so focused on what we're not doing right that we don't generally give ourselves credit for what we are doing well. And, we kind of push that to the side. And again, that goes back to the OAO, right? Is starting to automate what you're doing well. I think that it really was a very just clean things up and made things look in a way that I can really grasp and understand where my strong points are, where maybe I can work on. And, from there, I guess it would be getting in touch with you and whether you could do the one-on-ones. You do on one-on-ones coaching as well, if I saw correctly, yeah?
And from that perspective, I pretty much only work with leaders of the organization. I don't
Okay.
usually work with management teams. I'm just working with the leadership. From that perspective, it's just what I coach to for the most part. But the assessment's great for leaders and managers. I mean, anybody's welcome to take it. It's free, doesn't cost anything. So, and I just think it gives you a good sort of framework to look at some of the things you might want to incorporate in this year's planning to do better. We all want to do better, right? And that's this
Yeah.
idea, whether we're selling something to make us do better or help us do better, whatever the case is, but we have this internal drive to do better too. And I think that's the thing here. It's like, are you driven to do better, even better than what you're doing now? And what do you want out of that? And how can you make that happen? And that's what the assessment's for, to kind of give you a few little ideas there, whether you use a coach like me or someone else, or whether you start reading a crazy amount of books to help you through, or watch YouTube videos. I mean, there's a lot of information up there, Daniel. And I think the biggest thing is that you don't just ideate around it, you don't just postulate around it, you actually activate. And you need to be active in some of these things. You can read 1,000 books, but if you don't actually do anything, it doesn't matter.
So now that you brought it up, and I know I said we don't have much time left, but it sounds like we could keep going. Look, so I mean, I've got a stack of the help me, the help me books, and I've listened to a podcast and all this. Um, what's kind of the lowest barrier of entry, I guess, action I can take in order to start building momentum?
Well, I think, I'm, like I said, I'm a Business Made Simple certified coach, and Donald Miller has written a great book. It's called Business Made Simple. And it's, 15 or $20 on Amazon, and you can get the digital copies probably for less than that on Kindle.
Nowadays with tech, it's so easy to get your hands on anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great, easy to read book that lays things out in simple format. Comes with a bunch of free videos. I think there's 60 days worth of three free videos
Oh,
as
wow.
well that are attached to that, 5, 7, 8 minute videos along how to build a better business and how to make that simple. That's all in alignment with the airplane that you were just chatting about. So it's all kind of in alignment with the assessment, all of that stuff together. And then the next step really is going from there and digging down deeper into some of the areas that you need help with.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Pete, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you gave us today. I myself personally gained so much from this, and I'll be watching this podcast over to kind of rekindle some of the topics that you discussed. Because again, there was so much thrown, or I shouldn't say thrown. There was so much placed in front of us that I did miss a couple of those key components that you went over. So thank you again. The website is simplifyingentrepreneurship.com. Pete, any final words?
I just want to say thanks so much for having me. It's just been a real pleasure, Daniel. Loved our conversation and would be interested in having another one. Hopefully, we'll reconnect down the road.
Yeah, and at that point, hopefully, I've picked up a little bit more of what you've gone over, so we can start to talk a little bit more advanced topics. Because again, I think we just scratched the surface of what the knowledge that you do have. Awesome, awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us on this mindset, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.